DeSanto Propane is 4 generations strong as a trustworthy family-owned business with unmatched customer service. Go online at DeSantoPropane.com for more info or call toll-free at 1-800-752-4574. Since 1937, the difference has been DeSanto Propane.
All right, everybody, welcome into Concrete Jungle for this week. Day late. Got back late last night from Bristol, Tennessee for the NASCAR race weekend. And boy, oh boy, probably a good thing I had more stuff to pay attention to there for our New York baseball teams. I am Paul Russo, Kyle Evans here with me as well. Man, I think the easiest jump point here, Kyle, is just going to be this. When we talked last week, I talked about, hey, look, for the Yankees and Mets this week, do we expect sweeps? No, but you need to win the series and everything like that. And both teams just failed to get that mission accomplished.
Yeah. At one point during last week, they were on similar losing streaks. I think it both hit 5 for both teams. Just actually, things are kind of in the opposite direction, though. The Mets can't score a run, and the Yankees just can't hold leads. I mean, their bullpen has been that bad. We talked about it on earlier episodes. We talked about it off air that we thought it was always going to be a concern. And 17 games in, and we certainly got a good look at it last night of how bad it could be throughout the year. We even had a guy already optioned. So yeah, I mean, it's not a good start for both New York teams. I mean, it is only April too, so I guess this would be a bigger discussion if it was like midsummer. But yeah, and these teams have to turn the direction very fast.
Yeah, let's start with the Yankees this week here. So 2 wins in the last 7 days. Dropped the series to the Athletics. Get swept by Tampa. They obviously, normally we talk on Mondays, but we're here on Tuesday. So last night they get a win, but even then against the Angels, it's like, what a mess. And we see, and I think we'll jump more into this here in a second, but like you mentioned, we start seeing the bullpen stuff really rear its head. And, just miserable stuff overall. But yeah, it's kind of funny though, Kyle, because you mentioned that offense. But really, to me, when you look at some of the scores here and stuff like that, you could almost make the case that for the Yankees, it was the offense not showing up at the very least against Oakland or Sacramento. Apologies to Major League Baseball and Rob Manfred. Hope they don't come at me. But and then yeah, maybe there's some slight improvement against Tampa Bay, and then obviously last night against the Angels. But like I said to you off air before we got going, I'm like, I've been getting texts from friends, and I was with one of them over the weekend, and they kind of have a gambling system right now of like Jazz Chisholm strikeouts going on. It's just kind of frustrating there a little bit, and get your thoughts on that before we get to the pitching stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you do have a good point. The offense definitely struggled last week. I still thought though that some of those games are winnable because they did put up runs on the board. Where I know we're going to talk about it later, but the Mets literally have not scored in 2 straight games.
Right.
But yeah, the bottom of the order, you mentioned Jazz being 1. I mean, he's kind of middle of the order, but bottom of the order 2 has been really bad up until last night or maybe in the last 2 games. Brian McMahon has been a complete no-show. Austin Wells really hasn't gotten to going, although he did have his first home run over the weekend. And yeah, I mean, they just need more production from the bottom of the order, or else they're not going to go anywhere because that top of the order cannot carry the load all year. I mean, Judge, it seems like he's finally going to start heating up, but Stanton's not going to stay this hot forever. He's going to have some rough patches. Ben Rice, I mean, it's baseball. Every guy's going to go up and down, and now the bottom of the order really needs to pick it up to start carrying a little bit, in case some of these guys that have already carried the load do get cold.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. Not even so much cold, right? But we've seen Bellinger now; he's dealing with a little bit of an issue, and we've seen Grishik now play in some consecutive games here in the the early results on that experiment are not going great. Obviously, he's
Oh,
part of that bottom of the lineup issue, like you just mentioned.
doesn't have a hit. 0 for 13. JC Escara 0 for 5 or 0 for 11. Yeah, I mean, you look at Ryan McMahon. This is the funny one. 4 for 37. 4 for 37. How was that even possible?
Yeah, like on what other I don't even know what other team would even be giving him considerable run right now. And that includes his former team like Colorado. Like I don't know who would be giving him consistent playing time, even though it's still early in the season like that with that number.
Yeah, and it gets worse. Austin Wells. I didn't realize it's still just looking 7 for 42.
Yeah.
That's how bad he's been too. I mean, yeah, it's hard to believe some of these numbers. I get it. Teams can get off to slow starts. Usually the Yankees aren't one of those teams. Usually they get off to a fast start and then June swoon hits.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's kind of stunning to me, honestly, because this is why they brought this team back, because this team did lead the league in runs scored last year and did, was in top five of every offensive category. I'm not saying I expect them to totally repeat that, but this is a lineup that, is good. It is talented. You can see it. And I don't know. I mean, I do think they'll figure it out. I think the Mets are probably more of the team to worry about right now than the Yankees. But yeah, again, you can't keep falling like this. I mean, you don't want to. I mean, you're still in first place, which is crazy. But at the end of the year how big some of these games mean in the AL East in terms of how it's decided. So they got to get going here.
Yeah, let's now move over to the getting going category here. Pitching. Um it's I think last night was a pretty glaring example overall. And I know I don't want to highlight maybe specifically Monday night's game, 11-10, the Yankees win against the Angels. But like I feel like there's a lot of perfect encapsulation stuff to the season so far within the game, mainly to me. And I know it's going to be more focused on the bullpen, which is fair, but pitching overall. Um, Look, I'm not going to sit here and defend Jake Bird's lack of good numbers in this case, but part of me wonders if the reason he got optioned today this morning, if people don't know, Jake Bird got optioned this morning to AAA, is also just like the fact that the bullpen is just so overused right now. Like Will Warren didn't make it out again um, to a. I'm having a brain fart here. This is what happens when I go on vacation. um, but he
I
doesn't
mean,
get through. He doesn't get through where he should, right? And this has been a consistent issue so far for the Yankees. I'm gonna run through some numbers here quick, Kyle. Brent Hedrick has the most amount of appearances for the Yankees right now this year with 10, right? Then it's Duvall with 9. You have what is it, three guys tied in eighth, being Jake Bird, Cruz, and Tim Hill, all with 8 at that point. Bednard at 7, Blackburn at 4, and then you finally get to the starters. And I'm not, and I, obviously, look, bullpen guys are going to have more games played than starters. That's just how it is. But the fact that literally over half of the bullpen is before you get to your first starter, that's a huge, huge red flag to me.
yeah, with that Will Warren thing you just mentioned is becoming a problem because it even dates back to last year. He doesn't give the team enough innings, and last night you just felt like, wow, he can't even get through four, and we have to now deal with this bullpen. And sure enough, I mean, every time they got a lead, they had 3 leads in this game of multiple runs multiple runs, and each time they were blown by, I mean, even different relievers. I mean, there was guys that came in and got pulled out mid-inning, but those runs were still charged to them, vice versa. Some Camilo Duvall hasn't looked like himself since the first few games of the year, which I always worried about too. Going into the year, Jake Bird just hasn't had it since he's come over in the trade. Um, David Bednar, I mean, his velo is a little bit down too, but I literally think it's just because he's being used to them. I mean, there's times where he's pitched 3 out of 5 days and stuff like that, and I mean, that's just a big workload. I don't think he ever really did that in Pittsburgh. Just think about it. There wasn't as many safe situations or high leverage spots, with them leading late in the game like that. So I just think it's kind of unfamiliar territory for him. And it's not good because, again, you look at the date, it's April 14th. I mean, I don't know how they're going to last this whole year. And they can call guys up from AAA and stuff like they're going to do today with Yuri De Los Santos. But I just don't know how that's going to be good all year to do that. I do think they really messed up by not making trades for the reliever.
It's unsurvivable, to put it bluntly, right? Because I hate doing it from this perspective because it's going to be like you're I'm defending it from, I don't want to say the front office perspective or anything like that, right? But like then this is where now you enter the game of like options and DFAs and stuff like that, and you risk losing. I'm not, God, I hate talking like this, but you risk losing somebody who actually is probably of value because you DFA him because now you need to save innings or save appearance, whatever you want to call it, because you shortchanged yourself in the offseason, right? And I'm not, and look, I don't think the Yankees are going to be in a spot where it's like, oh, we have to DFA Tim Hill for whatever reason, but like probably a very that's like a really extreme example, but like that's stuff that happens in these spots for teams throughout the year where you sit at the end of the day and you scratch your head, and that's those like spots where you kind of wonder like this is like the reason why stuff has happened.
Yeah, Tim Hill's actually been one of their best relievers, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, the background, the story with how he came over and all that. But yeah, you look at like the other I mentioned it a ton. The three lefties to start the year. Brent Hedrick has been used a ton, like you said, most appearances out of the bullpen, and even on the team if you include that. But then you look at like Ryan Yarbrough, the third lefty in the pen. He's got only 4 appearances, but like obviously he's not going to be in these high leverage spots. But he's going to have to start doing that if this bullpen can't figure it out, and the starters don't get more length because they just don't have enough weapons, in my opinion. Fernando Cruz, I mean, you just never know. Is he going to come in and be wild? I
Right.
mean, he did walk in the tying run last night and almost gave up a go-ahead grand slam, died at the warning track. So yeah, I don't know how they're going to survive this all year. It's crazy. There's so many more games to go.
Yeah, and I think too, just a one final piece on this before we move on. Um, I, I don't like the fact that I've already gotten notifications from various outlets that are talking about how Cole and Rodon are the relief, the cavalry coming in. And I look like it's not like these guys are going 8 or 9 innings in their first starts on the year. Like it's just absurd to think that. It's just not the way baseball operates anymore. Sports operates at any point. So like to me, it's just like, so like what are we talking about then here with the team, right? And it just goes back to stuff we've talked about for the better part, not only this past off season, but frankly, like one or two prior off seasons too, where it's like you can't just keep trotting out the same pieces expecting it to work. It's just not going to happen if it doesn't happen already, like multiple times over.
Yeah, I mean, having a bullpen that's really good and can get you big outs is one of the biggest things in this game. I mean, the starter can give you as best of a performance as he can, as we see, like for example, with Paul Skeens in Pittsburgh. But if your bullpen is not it, then it doesn't matter. So that's how I feel right now with this Yankee bullpen. I mean, the offense last night, the fact that they almost lost that game with scoring 11 runs against the Angels at home in the Bronx, with Will Warren starting and throwing 3 perfect innings to start the game off from,
Mm-hmm.
and they almost didn't win that game. I mean, that's very, very concerning.
Yeah. I don't know. And one final thing before we get to the full week ahead here too, we kind of mentioned Jazz a little bit. I, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention it a little bit, obviously with the stuff going on with him overall here. But I don't understand some of the stuff going on with him. I know this is look. I've been a fan of Jazz since he was on the Marlins. I like. I don't know. Not to say I like his style, Rick. I just like the way he goes about his business. Right, it's different. It's unique. It's uniquely Jazz, right? But I just, and I know it's been played out a ton, but it's like one of those things where I'm looking at my phone over the weekend and I'm seeing him talk to the media about how like that's a rule, that's not a rule, you tell me. And then you have Boone, who, yeah, he's gonna more or less defend his guy, right? But like I'm sitting there going like again, like these are like spring training stuff, and I know it's early in the year, but it's not like Jazz was just introduced to baseball in the past 2 years. It's like it's just one of these things again where I'm just like, how come we aren't addressing these things in February and March? And here we are already midway technically through April, and we're still having issues understanding basic baseball concepts.
And it's every year. I mean, you think back last August in Miami, it's constant mental errors. I mean, I'm sure you saw the quote even a couple weeks ago, I think now it was, where
Mhm.
he's blaming the cold for his slow start as if they don't play in cold weather in October. Um, he always thinks like everything is all great and fine and nothing to worry about. Then you look at his average, even though average isn't everything anymore. Look at his on base percentage. I mean, he's just not even getting on base at this point. He's been really, really bad, and now I truly think my mind has changed. I don't personally think the Yankees are going to want him, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, at minimum, right, he's not helping his case, and that's the thing. And this is, I mean, we've both seen it now, Kyle. This is a Yankee team that up the middle has just kind of been I don't want to say revolving door, right? But like, they don't re-sign Robinson Cano, and Derek Jeter retires in the span of 2 years. And since then, second and shortstop have just been these, for the most part, revolving doors of guys in and out. And those are two very, to state the obvious, those are two, if not of at least one of your key positions in baseball, right? And I don't know, man. I don't think I'd want a guy who doesn't fully understand the basic concept of getting an out in a tied game situation in an extra inning. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, the PR department's really upset with some of the comments he's been making lately.
Yeah.
I don't know if you also saw like the TikTok thing he did. I mean, it's not like a huge deal, but it's just funny. Like they were naming players that talk if that player is better than you, and they're naming like Shohei Otani, and
Oh, yeah.
and it's just funny. I mean, I know you're a major league player, you want to be confident and all that, but it's funny. He does all this talking and this like bragging, and then you see what he's doing on the field, and it's just like I don't want a guy like that. I want a guy that's not going to forget the rules.
Mhm.
Not going to complain about the cold. I mean, come on. He literally played in how many Octobers now? He
Right.
knows.
Yeah. Yeah, the fact that he was silent through it in charge, I was just like, what are we doing? But either way.
Yeah.
Yankees schedule for the week before we reconvene next Monday. 4 games with the Angels here. Obviously, they picked up the win last night on Monday, and then 3 at home against Kansas City before an off day next Monday, before they head up to Boston. Yeah, I guess the way I'm going to phrase it here is it's going to be like I have no faith in them getting either of these series, which means somehow they'll find a way to probably win both of them to some degree. But um, the Kansas City one gives me, I don't know, less hope than the Angels series. Maybe that's just me having some quote unquote stock right in the Royals this year compared to the Angels. Um, so I don't know. I view this as maybe a true split of 2-2 against the Angels at best right now. And then I don't know. It's tough to view the weekend series right now given the state of the bullpen. I don't like what arms are going to be available. Like it's tough to gauge out. So um I don't know, man. It sounds crazy saying it this way, but if the Yankees have a 500 week here, I feel like they got to try and take advantage of that to some degree.
Yeah, keep in mind they're in the middle of a 13-game stretch without an off day.
Yeah.
They still have 6 games remaining of the stretch. So yeah, I mean, I agree. The bullpen, you just wonder how they're going to get out. And I guess I could say though that it was nice to see the offense last night. It was a warmer night in the Bronx and 5 home runs. I mean, the Yankees haven't even really been hitting a lot of home runs either. So that was nice to see. But again, it won't matter if the pitcher can't hold. But I'll say they'll go 3-3 to finish the 6 game span.
All right, we're both on the same thought process there, the way it seems. So let's head over to Queens and the Mets. Yeah, losers of six in a row.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, the Athletics appear to be the bane of New York baseball existence here this week. But for the Mets, you have to go beyond that, right, to the Diamondback series. Just flat out outscored there as well. They dropped the opener against the Dodgers last night, including whatever shenanigans they were doing with Shohei Ohtani. Um, just if you're the Mets, man, and obviously, like we mentioned a little bit ago, Kyle, we'll jump into some of the stuff with them, obviously, here in a second. But if you're them right now, too, man, you're kind of scratching your head, um, going much like the Yankees, where it's like you have these two series going into what is a very important week of games as well, and you couldn't capitalize. That's just brutal for even this time of year to have happen.
Yeah, they went 1-5 on their homestand against teams again that should be on paper at least. And look at some of the games. I mean, they're shut out twice by the Athletics, which it's just stunning to see that. They've had three shutouts in the last four games. They're in the middle. How about this? It's just hard to believe. 20 innings without a run scored.
Hmm.
Entering tonight's game, Tuesday night's game. They've had three different stretches of at least 17 innings without scoring a run. We've only played 17 games. I don't know how that's possible. So yeah, the offense is just really the reason why they're under 500 right now and why they've lost six in a row. And you look, and it's funny, everyone was jumping on Bo Bichette, but if you look up the numbers, Bo Bichette leads your team in hits. How
Hmm.
about that? The 225 average, but leads your team in hits.
And let me double down on that as well, Kyle, because I say this as somebody who also has him in fantasy. Boba not Boba in fantasy. Boba leads your team in RBI. Great, right? You know who has no RBIs right now for the Mets? Francisco Lindor.
That is unbelievable.
But that goes to your point, right? Of just like your guys that you were so much banking on. And look, hand up, right? I was one of these people too, being like, you kept the right person from this core to kind of do this soft reset and get things going. Not showing up in these first 2.5 weeks of the season, pretty much. You have to scratch your head, and I do think maybe a little bit too, at least in the past couple days or past few days, right? Is maybe you do miss Juan Soto to a degree, just in terms of like having that top third or so of the lineup be shaken up a little bit, right? Just because of what he can do. But like that to me though is still no excuse for what frankly is probably your main headline guy just not producing at all right now.
He's 12 for 68. Nine of the hits have been singles. He's literally been almost a no-show. It's bad. I do actually I'm starting to believe like is something going on in that clubhouse? Did it all start when Solo came over last year? Who doesn't like who? Is Pete Alonso and Brandon Nimmo leaving just like I don't know, more of an issue now in the clubhouse too?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm just wondering. I mean, we'll probably never know because they're going to keep that stuff inside. This isn't like the White Sox where they'll something could get leaked. But yeah, I mean, it's just this is not normal to see it all. And I mean, Juan Soto not being there is a big deal. They have not won since I said they were 4-0 without him. um, but still, though, again, you look at the lineup, you look at the pitching staff. They still have enough to be a good team and not be 3 games under 500 right now in the middle of a 6-game losing streak.
Yeah, and just kind of looking at the offense stuff here too a little bit. They only have six batters who can qualify for league lead in average. Look, Luis Robert, credit to him, right? He's batting 300, at least on that front, right? Great. But after that, you have to get to Brett Beatty at 231. And that's who your second place guy is on the team. And your low guy, like we've mentioned, is Lindor at 176. But in between, like you mentioned, right, Kyle, Bo Bichette's in there with the 225. Then you have Simeon below the Mendoza line at 197 and Jorge Polanco at 192. Like, I think there's obviously stuff, and I know it's like you beat a dead horse because this kind of is basic baseball stuff, but like, I think you just have to kind of shake up the lineup here at some point. I get you're playing the Dodgers, but like, man, like you have to go into, to me, if I were in the spot of Mendoza, I'm just going out there and I'm like, I don't know if I necessarily truly do a flip of the lineup where it's just like you're betting the 9 guy one. I don't think you can necessarily do that, obviously. But like, man, you have to figure out something here and figure it out quick because I, the fact of the matter that you only have 3 guys above the Mendoza line is egregious to me.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, right now, literally, it seems like one of the worst offenses in baseball, based on the streaks I mentioned and all that. Uh, and you look at their schedule, upcoming schedule. I mean, still 2 left with the Dodgers, and then they go to Chicago for 3. It just you just wonder when is it gonna turn the corner because it's not getting easier. And then you look, and even next week at home they got or yeah, next week at home they got the Twins, and look what the Twins did to the Red Sox last night. Garrett
Hmm.
Crochet. So I don't know. I mean, it's just bad. 7-10, I believe they are now. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
7-10. It's just unbelievable. Dead last in the NL East, 17 games in the year. And this is a season after missing the playoffs too. That's what even makes
yeah.
this crazier to me.
All right. Probably just quickly note we talked last week. Very funny how this thing works, right? Soto gets for sure placed on the IL after we talked Monday. Um, Ronnie Mauricio was the one who was called up. He got optioned back though yesterday. And Tommy Pham, come on down. You're now on the New York Mets roster. Um, we mentioned him as a name to potentially watch out for in this. I didn't necessarily anticipate, you know, this would end up happening with Mauricio also after he got brought up being the case here, but I don't know. It worked for the Diamondbacks 3 years ago, so why not for the Mets, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, he played in his first game last night. Of course, went hitless and 3 bats, but I for some reason have a good feeling. I think he's going to start hitting, and he's going to all of a sudden be the guy that's like kind of like getting the Mets going. Just the energy he brings,
Mhm.
veteran presence. I like that they brought him back. Um, yeah, I think it's eventually going to work out.
Yeah, I hear you there. Yeah, to maybe put a little bit of a bow here on the Mets stuff here for the moment too, just shows a little bit of the contrast of the 2 teams at the moment, bullpen wise, right? Like the Mets leaders in games pitch obviously are bullpen guys, like we mentioned, it's going to more than likely be the case. But Brazaban and Luke Weaver are both at 7, and they're tied at the top for in terms of appearances, right? And through 17 games, like, yeah, that sounds probably about where it should be, as opposed to, as we mentioned on the Yankee side, where it's double digits. Yeah, like we've been mentioning, not really so much a pitching issue on the Mets side of things as it is the offense.
Yeah, if we wanted to pick at one guy lately, though, it would be Puke Weaver, as Frank Fleming of Barstool says, not
Yeah.
Luke, Puke Weaver. Yes, he's been giving up the long ball lately. I don't know how many that is. I don't actually don't have the stats in front of me, but I know he allowed a 3-run home run the other day, and that really killed them. So, yeah, other than him, I think the pitching has been giving them a chance every night. The offense just has to score.
Luke Weaver, uh, I don't know. MLB Stats only has him at 1 home run given up this year. So
Or maybe it was just that big 3-run bomb
I
that
think
he.
it might have been just that specific Frank moment. As we know, he can be very intense, as we would
Yeah,
say.
it was a pretty good one, though, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. So, all right, for the Mets this upcoming week here, Kyle, as we mentioned, um, kind of the second half of this weird West Coast, back east, back to the West thing. A couple more with the Dodgers today and tomorrow, and then off day to travel back east of sorts to play the Cubs for a weekend set before another off day. The positive for the Mets here, to a degree, preface it that way, is that I love the matchup for them against the Cubs. The negative, right, is the fact that you still have 2 against the Dodgers. And it's kind of funny. We mentioned the weather stuff for like Jazz and the Yankees. Well, Chicago this time of year is beyond tumultuous. You never know kind of what you're going to get in the springtime in Wrigleyville. I do know the weather is supposed to be moderately decent for the weekend in terms of like temperature and stuff like that. I'm intrigued to see, in all honesty, this is Paul Russo's weather nerd moment corner here. Don't know if the Mets are going to play that game on Friday against the Cubs. It's the Midwest is shaping up to have an interesting early spring weather outbreak. So it will be interesting to kind of see how stuff plays out there. Don't know if it'll necessarily affect Chicago too much, but it might. But either way, I just worry about these last two games against the Dodgers going into the Cubs series, which I feel like is actually a really good turnaround spot for the Mets on offense.
Yeah, I think they're going to get swept in LA, but I think they're going to win 2 out of 3 in Chicago.
Yeah, and then kind of like you mentioned, right? They have like we mentioned off day, and then like you though mentioned, Kyle, the fact that they come home and maybe to even go beyond the Twins thing, right? You have a pretty decent sized homestand. It's 9 games over the course of 2 weeks. Well, more or less 2 weeks. And the front end of that is three against the Twins and then three against the Rockies. So it's one of those things where not to look too far ahead. Obviously, this is like a discussion point for next week's podcast, more or less, depending upon what happens with the rest of this week. But like, if you can't get it right this week, you have a huge opportunity to get it done next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Because even after that 9-game homestand, you look and they're going back out on the road out west. So yeah, they got to start stringing together some wins at home. And for the most part, I feel like they've been a pretty good home team for the last couple of years. Just not to start off with. They got to get something going here and just get some energy. It seems like every night they're lifeless. Even their manager, the way he talks, like you need someone to fire you up. And I that's why I think Tommy Pham was a great addition. He's only been there for 1 game, so let's see how that really picks up.
And look, you can say what you want about Tommy Pham, but we have a term in baseball, and it's not like a good term of endearment in the sense of like how some people might say to other people, but like Tommy Pham's got an ass, right? Like he's got that edge about him that you can kind of ride for a better wave of momentum, right? Like we're mentioning, it's one of those things where it's like, sweet, like get this guy in here, ruffle the feathers up a little bit, and get to work. And clearly, that's what the plan might be a little bit here.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so I think that does it for this week on Concrete Jungle. We'll be back again normally as we are normal on Monday next week. So we'll look forward to all that, recapping what happened this week and looking ahead to next week and all that fun stuff. So you can find Concrete Jungle here on fingerlakes1.com, the FO1 YouTube channel, and the audio only format of the podcast on Spotify and other major podcasting platforms where you might find your favorite episodes. So for Kyle Evans, I'm Paul Russo signing off for the week, and we'll talk again next week, everybody.